mode.
Good evening and welcome to Quit Killing the Moment by Controlling the Experience. My name is Beth McAllister from Zeta Omega Chapter in Waterloo, and I will be your technical producer and moderator this evening. And the webinar this evening is going to be presented by Ali Brown. Before we start the presentation, let's take a moment to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the GoToWebinar control panel. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see the attendee control panel, and on the left is the webinar viewer window. This viewer window is displaying the presenter's screen. The control panel can be minimized or expanded by clicking on the horizontal double arrow button in the upper left corner. Minimizing the panel will allow you a better view of the presentation. Take a moment to try that out. There are a few features of the control panel that you should know about. The most important one is the questions pane. To submit a question, type it into the questions box. These may be questions related to the presentation or technical questions related to the GoToWebinar system. You may also be asked by the presenter to type in ideas or responses here as part of an exercise during the webinar. So please send us a quick note letting us know where you are listening to us from in the questions pane now. All right, so we have Wyoming, Little Rock, Arkansas, Atlanta, Georgia, Brooklyn, New York, Lubbock, Texas, San Francisco. We were just talking about San Francisco a minute ago. Wheaton, Illinois, Livermore, California. Oh my goodness, we have lots coming in here. Fantastic. Thank you, ladies. Let's see here. Be sure to stay attentive and to interact with us as much as possible during the webinar. The quality of your experience depends on your attention and your participation. So try to avoid distractions like responding to email, checking your social media, or working on other tasks at your computer. If you need to step away for a moment, please do not close the GoToWebinar window, as you would be required to log in again. If you wish to rejoin the session, if you experience problems with the audio, one possible solution is to use the conference call number and listen to the presentation using your phone. Click the Use Telephone option in the audio pane of the control panel to view the conference call number. This webinar is being recorded, and the online archive will be available to view on the CAPA website and YouTube channel in approximately 2 weeks. So if we're all good with any questions, I'm going to hand it over to Ali to start our presentation.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. This is so exciting. Beth and I were just talking about how she has not experienced or moderated a webinar on this topic or something similar to it yet. So it's kind of exciting to move into a different direction to talk about something new. So thank you so much for being here. I know it can be tricky after a long day of work to hop on and do something else, but I'm really, really grateful for all of you for attending this evening. Just want to give you a quick introduction about myself. My name is Ali Brown, and I'm a Beta Nu Kappa, and I work for the Kappa Foundation in Columbus, Ohio. So I started with the fraternity about 3 years ago and have been in my role with the foundation for a year and a half, and I love it. So this topic, it's a lot of topics really rolled into one. It has started to intrigue me mostly through my journey becoming a yoga teacher. So one of the things that I kind of can put it into a nutshell is that it's a really humbling experience to stand in front of 30 adults and tell them what to do and tell them to love themselves and to be compassionate and to show this respect for their own bodies and their own breath, and then at the same time to not have my stuff together personally. It's humbling, and it's just kind of spurred a lot of interest in continuing to do some research on these topics and just move forward and better understanding who I am as a person and why I tick. So basically, yoga for me has been a path to self-discovery, and in the process, I'll be honest, I have had to call BS on myself more frequently than I would like to admit. So as a quick disclaimer, while I do see one regularly, I'm not a psychologist. So what we talk about tonight, it's hopefully going to serve several purposes, but honestly, one of the most important ones for me is that this is just a safe space. Questions are welcome. Beth will send them my way. I'd really like for this to be as interactive as possible. And I want all of you out there to know that this is a totally open, it's a free and supportive environment. And we're all just here to support one another in this thing we call life. So keep that in mind as we start to move through. So as I was saying, I hope that we all can feel really connected with each other. Living in my brain for the last 25 years, I think that's how old I am. When you're in your own internal dialogue, just day in and day out, sometimes it can feel a little bit lonely, and it can start to feel like you're the only person in the world who feels that way. So we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. It's just kind of marinate on that for a little bit. You wonder why your mind is racing from morning till night? That is why. So in these 60,000 thoughts a day, about 95% of those are recycled from the day before. So however long you have been on this earth, you've been recycling thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts day in and day out. So it's kind of no wonder that we all feel a little exhausted sometimes. And just to reinforce that we are all in the same boat, we're in the same space, I just kind of wanted to talk about a couple of the points that were brought up in the question for signing up for this webinar. So what I asked was, what is your biggest fear right now? And first of all, I'm just so pleased that all of you opened up and shared your stories and shared what's going on in your life. But as we continue to talk tonight, I just wanted to put up on the screen some of the biggest fears. Later, we're going to dig into fear and what that really means for us. So on the list, issues like financial kind of things going on, feeling alone in this world, so maybe feeling alone in those thoughts like I just mentioned, motherhood, how to navigate it, how to be successful in your career while also being a good family person, whatever that dynamic may be, relationships in general, fear of them ending, fear of them not working out, of being with the wrong person, just so many different details in regard to that subject. School, the ability to control what's going on in our lives, rather the inability to control, I think, is what causes the fear. Appearance, so just kind of the physical nature, what we are presenting outwardly. Huge fear that I think showed up in about 20% of the responses, this exact word, was fail or failure. The next one is just kind of fear of our critics. So I think in a lot of cases, that's what failure stems from, is fear of what other people will think about the things that we do. And according to Huffington Post, the 3 top fears for women deal with not being liked / trying to please others, family, and career and relationships. So I think we can all kind of understand where everybody is coming from, some of the pressures that we feel, and I just hope that we'll keep these kind of common ground fears in mind as we continue to chat. So first kind of brainstorming session that I'd like to have tonight, thinking back to those 60,000 thoughts that we have every single day. We know a whole bunch of them are repetitive, and I want you just to pause and think, wherever you are, on the couch, at your desk, in the car, identify 3 things you know you think about yourself every day. So not about your family, not about your friends, but truly about yourself. And maybe so it feels a little bit more comfortable, I want to share with you my list. This one is usually early on in the morning, and it kind of starts with, why are you always so unorganized? Why do you always seem to be running late? And why are you always a little unprepared? So that kind of starts its own thought spiral, point A. Thought B is, you should really eat healthier. You should exercise more. That turns into, you should have more money saved, and the list just starts to kind of go on and on. And then C, as I wonder if your relationship is going to work out. I wonder what your future is going to look like. And I can just say without a doubt, I know that those are three of many thoughts that pop up for me every single day and probably have popped up for as long as I've been able to form thoughts. And what we repeat the most are oftentimes the whys, the you should really do this, and the I wonders. And just kind of sharing my examples, they're all pretty negative, don't you think? So if you kind of think back to what I've said, I would love for some of you, or for all of you, if you're feeling comfortable, to type into the chat box just the one thought that you know you repeat over and over and over again. And again, safe space, no judgment here. And so as you're thinking about some of those details, and Beth, feel free to interrupt me if anybody pops up with a good one. But it's easy.
We have actually a bunch coming in right now.
Ooh, let's hear them.
So typically when I do this, I would mention people's names when I mention their comments, but tonight I'm not going to do that just so that everybody feels really comfortable putting up their questions and things. So just so you know, it's a little different for me tonight. So I've got one here that says, you should finally commit to exercising. Why am I always running late? Why aren't you inspired like your friends are?
Oh, that's interesting.
Why can't I just get it together? I should have more patience with my child. You should spend less money. And why can't you control your emotions more effectively?
Wow. Thank you all so much for sharing. We are hard on ourselves. And so we're going to keep talking about this. And this is the subject that I'm really going to focus on tonight. So just kind of keep that in mind. And thanks for being transparent. So those responses, my initial thoughts, we think of the cynical pieces first, right? I think as women, for whatever reason, that's how we've been hardwired to respond to ourselves. And so now I want to think of something a little bit different, a little bit of a different scenario, and make it more specific. So it kind of sounds silly because it has to do with physical appearance, and I think we all know in the grand scheme of things that doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's something that surfaces a lot for us. So this is a scenario. It's a Friday night, and you've got a babysitter, or you've had these long-standing plans, and you're going to a nice dinner with a girlfriend, an acquaintance, your partner, whatever it may be, and it requires you to wear something other than yoga pants, which I usually try to avoid experiences like that, but sometimes you just gotta do it. So same deal here. I would love it if you would type in the chat box one thing that you generally say to yourself when you look in the mirror. And my samples are up here for all of you to see. And then I said the rest are just conversations with my dog. And here she is. So go ahead and start typing those in there, and Beth, let me know what you get.
Okay, so I've got, I seriously need to tone up. That doesn't fit anymore. I don't really recognize this person. You need work done on your face. My goodness. I need some new clothes.
You snaps for all of these. I think I've said all of these things to myself too, so.
Your skin looks better when you're kind to it and don't cover it in so much product.
Okay.
And I don't want to go out.
Ah, I relate to that one. Usually I just want to put my sweatpants back on, so I understand that last one. And so like I mentioned before, for me, and I think for probably a bunch of us, this specific scenario brings up our desire for acceptance when it comes to physical appearance. And it brings up where we hide our self-esteem issues in different body parts. And more importantly, it just reinforces the tone that we take with ourselves. And look at mine. Mine were pretty ruthless. And I've spent a lot of time trying to think positively, and this is what I could come up with. So to put this all kind of in perspective and to put a story to it, I wanted to share the following. So we all know two wolves. One is evil. He has anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, self-doubt, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. This same fight is going on inside of you and every other person too. And so the question is, which wolf will win? And it's the one you feed. So for most of us, I think so far we've done a good job identifying this evil wolf, right? This voice that exists in our head. It's accusatory and it's never happy. It's never satisfied. And truthfully, it's a nag, and we subject ourselves to it day after day. You heard me correctly. We subject ourselves to it. And that was really, really hard for me to understand when I first started going through training and having these philosophical conversations, was the fact that I could control this. We have power over this negative force, and it takes a quick change of focus. It takes switching things from the evil wolf, feeding your energy into the evil wolf, moving it over to the good guy, basically. So ways to identify this and see what's going on is like we've already done. You think of what this voice says. When do they normally say it? Are there triggers, like stepping in front of a mirror? Are there triggers like when you're in the office, when you're about to give a presentation, etc.? And then which one do you usually listen to? When I'm not monitoring it, I usually listen to the bad wolf. And I would love to kind of hear all of your feedback. If you had to kind of boil it down, which voice do you usually listen to? Go ahead and type it in.
We've got a bad wolf for sure. The bad wolf.
Nice. Okay.
Got one who says, I listen to the good one every day.
Hey, awesome. That is so good to hear. So for some of us that do still struggle with this negative force, you have to habitually choose the good thoughts over the not so good ones. So you can kind of put this in perspective with the way that we treat others. Generally, we treat other people better than we treat ourselves, but one of the reasons I think yoga exists is because of traffic and because of driving. So just kind of an example, if somebody cuts you off on the freeway, right, the bad wolf would essentially start spewing expletives and rude gestures and kind of come up with all of these reasons that this person is the worst and they've made your life just super inconvenient for those few moments. That's one side. The other side would be one of more compassion, saying, hey, you know, that wasn't super cool, but we've all done it, realistically. So we can do that for other people, and I think it's time that we start to do that for ourselves. And right now, I would love for you to type into the chat box one positive statement to replace the ones that we've already discussed. So if you thought something negative about the mirror scenario, if it was something negative that you think day in and day out, as many of you as possible that have a keyboard, I want you to type one positive thing about yourself. And these statements generally start with, I am good at, I feel good when, I enjoy, I hope for, I dream. Just kind of positive opening statements, right? So go ahead and start typing those in. I would love, love, love to hear a bunch of them.
So I have I am super funny.
Yeah.
I am a beautiful person inside and out. I feel strong when I run. I'm doing the best that I can. My face is pretty. I thrive when I help others succeed. I give
Wow.
my all to my family. I am so thankful for the opportunity to serve, even though it can be exhausting. I love my genuine enthusiasm. I'm doing my best to do things that are life giving. I'm honestly pretty funny. I'm a good mom. I serve my community. I am compassionate.
Those are absolutely beautiful. And these are the things that we need to be saying to ourselves over and over and over again until we rewire the way our brain fires when we wake up in the morning and we start to think positively because we deserve it, right? Those are all such awesome, awesome traits and characteristics. So, moral of this section, moral of kind of step number one, if you want to call it that, is the one that wins is the one you feed. So make that choice and make it a choice daily. So we've already touched on fear a little bit as we shared, some of the common ones that we all have. And we're going to begin to shift focus still on fear, but how fear is really, really linked to shame, which I think is just an extremely interesting topic. So I really enjoy this quote. Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. And a lot of people will move through life without questioning their fears, or without working to learn more about their personal motives, their beliefs, just basically the driving factors of their lives. And so by registering for this webinar, I already know that you are hungry to learn more about yourself, and you're hungry to be a wholehearted human and to just contribute as much as you can. So props to all of you for being brave, because that's what it requires. So I don't know if a lot of you have heard of her. We watched a ton of her TED Talks in our yoga training. Her name is Brené Brown, and she has a really interesting story. She is actually a shame and vulnerability researcher who hates being vulnerable. So I'm just going to go ahead and let her talk about this, and I'm also going to just give her a shameless plug. You should read everything she's ever written. She has a book called Daring Greatly, and I thought it was just me. They're just awesome books. So I'm going to click on this and let you all hear Brené speak. And I do apologize because there is an advertisement. Furniture is the background of our lives, and I want to make it a really promise we're not talking about furniture.
I had to write down the name of this TED Fellow so I didn't mess it up here. Mishkin Ingawale. I hope I did right by you. I saw the TED Fellows my first day here, and he got up and he explained how he was driven to create some technology to help test for anemia because people were dying unnecessarily. And he said, I saw this need, so you know what I did? I made it. And everybody just burst into applause, and they were like, yes. And he said, and it didn't work. And then I made it 32 more times, and then it worked. You know what the big secret about TED is? I can't wait to tell people this. I guess I'm doing it right now. This is like the failure conference. No, it is. You know why this place is amazing? Because very few people here are afraid to fail. And no one that gets on the stage so far that I've seen has not failed. I have failed miserably many times. I don't think the world understands that because of shame. There's a great quote that saved me this past year by Theodore Roosevelt. A lot of people refer to it as the man in the arena quote. And it goes like this. It is not the critic who counts. It is not the man who sits and points out how the doer of deeds could have done things better and how he falls and stumbles. The credit goes to the man in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and blood and sweat. But when he's in the arena at best, he wins And at worst, he loses. But when he fails, when he loses, he does so daring greatly. And that's what this conference to me is about. That's what life is about daring greatly, about being in the arena. When you walk up to that arena and you put your hand on the door and you think, I'm going in and I'm going to try this, shame is the gremlin who says, you're not good enough. You never finished that MBA. Your wife left you. I know your dad really wasn't in Luxembourg. He was in Sing Sing. I know there's things that happened to you growing up. I know you don't think that you're pretty enough or smart enough or talented enough or powerful enough. I know your dad never paid attention even when you made CFO. Shame is that thing. And then if we could quiet it down and walk in and say, I'm going to do this, we look up and the critic that we see pointing and laughing 99% of the time is who? Us. Shame drives 2 big tapes, never good enough. And if you can talk it out of that one, who do you think you are? The thing to understand about shame is it's not guilt.
All right, let me get back over to the PowerPoint. I just think that this is a really interesting approach to kind of explain why we think the way that we think, because fear is kind of this imagined thing. Fear is a result of these walls that have been built around us because of what we think our critics will say about us, or fear of judgment, or just, fear of not doing well enough. But at the end of the day, I have this quote up here because it's so true. If we're the ones who show up at the gate and we're about to walk in to this arena, who cares? We're the ones who do the work. We are the ones who raise the children. We are the ones who are fully in relationships. We are in our own bodies. We are in our own lives. Who cares what other people think? And at the end of the day, I think it's so important to determine if you are your own biggest critic, right? Because you can decide that you're not going to care what other people say about you or how other people make you feel, whatever that may be. But at the end of the day, there's still a sticking point if you're not on your own team. So like I said, I hugely recommend looking at Brené Brown's work. It's really, really interesting. Does anybody have any questions right now? Just kind of want to open up and see how everybody's doing out there. If you want to go back to a certain topic, just let me know. Do we have any questions?
I'm not seeing anything come in right now, Allie.
Fantastic. Okay, so while we kind of simmer on that, let's move on to self-love. This is my favorite, and I really enjoy this quote. We have to learn to be our own best friends because we fall too easily into the trap of being our own worst enemies, aka our own worst critics, aka the person standing in the audience of the arena laughing at us. So we've really, really got to work to reestablish this loving relationship with ourselves. And I included this little meme from Parks and Rec because Donna and Tom, they love to treat themselves. They have days where they focus solely on their own betterment, and sometimes it's in shallow ways, but I think there are a lot of good tips and tricks that can even be picked up from them. Self-love spans a lot of categories. So we've already hit on it. It's the way that you talk to yourself. It's the way that you talk to yourself to other people. For example, I am known for having somewhat of a self-deprecating sense of humor, and the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that that's not self-love, and the way that I speak about myself to others is really just a reflection of what I actually think of myself. So that's kind of something that I've started to spend a little bit more focus on. But it's a lot of things. It's time alone. It is a quiet glass of wine. It's a yoga class, a nap, a massage, shutting off electronics completely, reading self-help books, which I love to do, spending time with friend or family. And there are just so many ways to do it, and it's different for all of us, but it's so critically important. So I challenge all of you to really, really try your best to find one thing that reminds you to love yourself. One thing that brings you back, recenters you, helps you calm down, and it kind of feels like a warm hug. And like I mentioned earlier, we usually treat ourselves much worse than we treat the people that we love in our life, the people that we love that exist in our lives. So when we go back to those conversations that we have in the mirror, we would never say that to our best friends. We would never say that to a family member. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as well. A couple more ideas. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek to find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Where has shame creeped up? Where has it made you second guess yourself? Excuse me. I'm recovering from a week-long cold, so I apologize for the frog in my throat. And then to be beautiful means to be yourself. You don't need to be accepted by others. You just need to accept yourself. And even if you have family members around you, I don't care. I want every single one of you to out loud repeat and say, I am enough. I am worthy. And say it over and over and over again. And so this next set of slides, we're just kind of talking about more tips and tricks for how to love yourself more, how to let go of this control that we feel in our lives, and to understand that the only thing we can control are our own thoughts and our own perceptions of ourselves. So as I mentioned before, if you're sitting around saying things like, I am worthy of love, etc., those are mantras, and I love to use those in my yoga practice, or if I'm on a walk, or even when I'm sitting at my computer feeling a little bit stressed out. One of my favorite things to repeat is just simply, you are worthy of love. So I encourage you to find something that resonates with you. Maybe it's, I am beautiful. Some of those things that we talked about earlier. And then I'm obviously an advocate for yoga, but I know that it's just not for everybody, and that is perfectly fine. But all that matters is that you focus on your breath. I would say even 5 minutes a day, you'll start to notice something different. So we're going to do, I promise, just a brief amount of breath work, because I talk to my students a lot. It's really pretty much impossible to think of anything negative when you let out a really, really deep exhale, right? So I'm talking like embarrassingly loud breathing, like right? So it's like an HA noise, like you're trying to fog up some glass. So empty out your exhale. Inhale, fill up with breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. Open the mouth, fog up the glass. Usually even after one round, I start to feel a little bit more relaxed. So know that it's always there for you. And this has been something really helpful. A lot of times when I'm in the shower, I don't know about you all, that's when I start having my negative thoughts, these spirals where I start with, you should have bought more body wash, and I end up with, you're not good enough, right? Who knows how we get there. But it's super helpful when you can catch one of those absurd thoughts and just laugh at it. You might feel a little bit crazy, and you might even look a little bit crazy, but just laugh at it. Because once the bad wolf hears laughter at its expense, it's going to run away. And then, I forgot to mention this before, but just a gratitude practice. So in the morning, 3 things you're really grateful for, just list them off. And then before you crawl back in bed, name 1 reason that you are grateful for you. And I know we are sorority women. I think we're used to seeing quotes everywhere and cute kind of embroidered canvas and whatever it may be. But write quotes down that help you. If any of the quotes from this webinar resonated with you, put them in an easily visible space. I cover my cubicle. Sometimes I get things tattooed on my body as reminders. You don't have to go that far. But for me, this example is I have "Now Here" tattooed on my wrist. My poor mother. And so it's basically you're now here or you're nowhere. And so that's something that sticks with me and reminds me to be present and to let go of the stuff that doesn't matter.
Allie?
Yes.
We have a question here that says, how do people combat the evil wolf on a regular basis?
On a regular basis. So let me tell you, combating the evil wolf on a regular basis can be exhausting because you have to start to catch these thoughts. So most of us will have the thought cycles and it won't even resonate with us that these are indeed negative and that they're destructive, right? So now that we've talked about it, I guess challenge number one is to simply catch those thoughts. So you hear something negative, you know that it's not kind to yourself, and you simply say, hey, this is the bad wolf, right? Once you start to notice these situations, you then replace it. You have the negative thought, and then you almost have to force yourself to think of two positives to outweigh that negative. And that's something, it's work. And I wish that I was really, really good at this all the time, but I struggle with it every day. And you have to think about it, you have to catch it, and then you have to put in the effort to replace it with good things. Does that help? And I would suggest writing it down too.
So yeah, we have a response back that says, yes, great ideas. I love the idea of writing it down. And one of our other participants has said, for me, she likes to watch an inspirational program every morning.
Oh, that's awesome. I know a lot of people who in the morning, they will get out of bed before they even turn the coffee pot on, before they turn phones on or check emails, they'll sit and they'll sit in silence for about 5 minutes, or they'll take out a journal and write what they're grateful for in the journal, just write what's going on in their head. Or you could listen to a favorite song, something that's uplifting. You could watch a TED Talk, something like what Brene Brown talks about, or you can write a quote out that you love. I think that starting your day off with that mindset can be so beneficial. And then one more thing, it's something that I've noticed, and I'll be curious to see if you all notice this too. Once you start to think about these shame walls, things that have changed the way you look at yourself, maybe it was somebody in middle school who said something mean about your appearance, or it was a teacher who said that you weren't going to be able to succeed in this career, whatever it is. Once you start to identify those, you focus so heavily on the words you use with other people. So that's just something that I would encourage you to observe and just notice, because I used to say things without thinking about it truly the way that I should have, and now I'm a lot more careful with my words. And then I think this is encouraging to know that you are going to run into the people who are still going to flip you the bird on the freeway no matter what. You are going to run into the people who are rude, to customer service people who they just seem so negative. And when you're on a path to kind of rid this bad wolf in your own life, sometimes it even becomes more personal. But I just want to clarify that is okay. Not everybody is on the same path that you're going to be on. You can send them good vibes. You can send them hopeful thoughts that someday they're going to work it out, but you can't let it sink with you too bad. And then finally, I am going to read this one out loud because I think it is very, very important. Gotta find my slide. Okay, so I want everybody to hear this and listen close. Your existence, your light, and your spirit, they're so incredibly important to this universe we share, and there is no one as spectacularly wonderful as you are. You are more than beautiful or unique. You're absolutely one of a kind, and your kind thoughts, words, and actions to yourself and others can and will give way to a more compassionate, connected life. And so I'm sending lots of peace and love from me to you, and I'm just so thankful that you've chosen to spend your evening chatting about this topic. And really quick, I'd like to open it up just for a couple of questions because we've got about 5 minutes. So feel free to fire away.
So we've got a great comment here from one of our participants that says, I listen to uplifting podcasts when doing activities or work that will usually trigger the bad wolf thoughts.
Genius. That is a wonderful idea.
And then we have another suggestion about another great speaker called Denise Lynch that one of our participants really enjoys listening to and says that she's been really helped her deal with some issues that she was having in her own life. So that's a suggestion from one of our participants as well.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Denise Lynch. I have never actually listened to her speak, so I will need to do that myself. If that closes the questions, I just want to say thank you so much. You're all beautiful, beautiful people inside and out. And it's just a pleasure to have spent the last 40 or so minutes with you.
Thank you so much, Allie, for leading the session. And thank you to everyone who participated with us here this evening. If you have questions or comments about today's topics, you can email your presenter. Allie is at headquarters. Allie, do you have an email address where they could ask you?
I do, yes. Absolutely. It's abrown@kkg.org. Just abron@kkg.org. And I'd love to hear from you all.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Allie. So as we close the webinar tonight, a survey is going to open on your screen. You'll be prompted to respond to a few evaluation questions. Please take a moment to share your thoughts on tonight's webinar. Your feedback will help us shape future webinar training events. And if you have any additional questions or comments whatsoever, you are welcome to send an email to education@kkg.org. So thank you very much from myself and from Allie, and we hope you have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you out at another webinar again soon.
Thanks, everyone.